Welcome to Human Tech, a podcast about the intersection between humans and technology. My name is Guthrie. I'm here with Susan. Hey, Susan.
Hello.
Today's topic is about Microsoft. So it is recent things that Microsoft is happening, maybe a little bit of the past history, the UX of various sort of Microsofty products,
Yeah.
um, and some recent announcements. So that is what we're going to tackle today. Do you want to start, or do you want me to start?
You start, Guthrie.
So we're choosing Microsoft. We were thinking about doing Microsoft for a bit. There's a lot in there, long history of Microsoft, and I think Microsoft is maybe a little underappreciated for its role in user experience, for its role in human computer interaction.
Oh, it's a controversial role.
Well,
Yeah,
I
we
know
can
they
talk
just
about
stole it from
that.
Xerox. I'm sure anyone listening knows that whole story. But regardless of not, what's the, imitation is the greatest form of flattery or something.
Yes,
They certainly, maybe they didn't invent it, but they did popularize
a
the
lot.
graphical, a lot of stuff, all kinds of things. And so I don't think they maybe get as much credit as other big companies because traditionally Microsoft has been seen as stiff, corporate, not traditionally not as cool and sexy as a Google or some other Silicon Valley startups. And so they're not seen as maybe as groundbreaking and revolutionary as they are in a lot of different fields. And so we can talk a little bit about that.
Definitely. Yeah.
Should we start with the past or should we start with the current events?
Oh, oh, let's start with current events and work our way backwards. How's that?
Okay, let's do that. So the current events with Microsoft, there are two things, and they're all sort of three things, and they're all sort of tied together.
Yeah.
The first, yeah, there's three topics that we're going to talk about with the current events. The first one is not necessarily what you would expect, but it is about what is called Microsoft Loop, which is I have been looking forward to. I have wanted to transition our business over to Microsoft Loop for 2 years. As soon as I saw the demo, like a
Okay.
bajillion
Can
years
I
ago.
say that I didn't know about this till right now, so we definitely have to
Yeah.
talk about this.
Yes.
Okay, so
Micro,
Microsoft Loop we're going to talk about.
Microsoft Loop is really, really interesting. As soon as I saw it, I was like, "This is fantastic!"
All right,
And
what's number
and
2 that we're going to talk about?
number two, so they announced Microsoft Loop. Number two is of course Copilot, which is
Microsoft Copilot. We're going to talk about that.
in. I watched. Did you watch the entire Copilot?
I watched the entire
Yeah,
Copilot video.
video. I also did as well. Their sort of announcement video,
36 minutes. I have
and
lots to say.
it's so funny. For those of you who don't know, Copilot, they in the lots to complain about in the corporate.
Yes,
We're unveiling our new
we'll talk about the
products.
video.
Oh my
Yeah.
god. Um, Apple is just the production value of the Apple stuff is so much better. It's kind of amazing. But they went out of their way to say that Copilot wasn't just Chat GPT shoehorned into Microsoft Office products because they're using data from all the data that you've ever done in Microsoft is basically used as the base point. But it sure as heck looks a lot
Looks a
l-
lot like
like shoehorning
it
Chat
does.
GPT
Yes.
into Microsoft.
All right. So,
But in fairness to using um, Microsoft's other sort of services and data as a sort of a repository to do stuff with it.
yes.
But
All right. So, we're going to
I
talk about Loop. We're going to talk about Copilot. What is the third piece of the current Microsoft things we're going to talk about?
The third piece is only ancillarily related, but it
Okay.
does sort of tie in to this. For those of you who may not know or may not remember, um, all the tech startups have backed various AI horses. Uh, the Open AI initiative, which has seeming to be the initial winner,
Yes.
that is a horse backed by Microsoft. So Microsoft is the one who invested heavily in it. They have the largest controlling stake. They get the first bite at the apple, so to speak. So it shouldn't, in some ways, all the tech companies are trying to win AI, and that probably means
Yeah.
we all lose. But as I will reiterate every time I do this, I think it should almost all be illegal, and there needs to be regulation and fines and oversight and all kinds of stuff.
Yes, we'll talk
Um,
about that.
but related to that, there are new models that allow. Uh, I, did you know about the way that ChatGPT makes money?
All right. S- I'm trying to get this high level agenda here. We're going to talk about current Microsoft
Current
issues. We're going to talk about Loop
Loop.
and Copilot
Yep.
and
This third thing that I haven't said what it
this
is yet,
third thing that you
without a
haven't said what it
preambling.
is.
So, do you know how OpenAI AI makes money?
Well, they just got $20 a month from me.
So, the way it works, yes, they have that, but for the most part, many businesses, specifically like Amazon Web Services or Microsoft, sort
Hmm.
of whatever is it, Azure Cloud? I forget exactly what they call this stuff. You pay on like the instance, so it's like a trillionth of a penny anytime
Yeah.
you use their resources,
Yeah.
and it's like that with OpenAI. So
Okay.
anytime you run a query, right, it's like a
They
a
get a little bit.
millionth of a cent
Okay.
every for every sentence or whatever. I forget whatever it is.
Okay.
There's some way that they calculate using the servers. So there's a certain barrier to entry. If we wanted to use ChatGPT in our business
In our
products,
business.
we
Yeah.
could. We could go out and do that, but it does cost money to do
To
so.
do that.
So
Yeah.
that brings me to, we are recording this on March 22nd. That brings me to the uh, GTC NVIDIA 2013 keynote that happened on the 21st.
Oh,
And I'm guessing you didn't hear about this.
no.
So
There's only so many videos I can watch in
I
a
didn't even
week.
watch the
And
video. I just read the highlight. I didn't need to
oh,
watch it.
okay.
So Nvidia, they make graphics cards.
Yeah.
They're most well known for their consumer line of cards, right? So the
Yeah.
cards that are powering our desktops are both Nvidia cards right now. Yes, they are. Um, and but they're big. Much like many other consumer facing companies. Yeah, that's fine. But their big clients are in the corporate space. And so this is their developer conference where they talk
Okay.
about some of the nerdier stuff that
Yeah.
never going to see the light of day in a Best Buy.
Yeah.
So what they announced was the H100 NVL with dual GPU NVLink
Sure. Guthrie,
based
whatever
on
you
their
say.
Hopper architecture
Okay.
with a transformer engine to
All
process
right.
models.
A Hopper architecture and a
That's
transformer
what the H
engine.
stands for, is our
That's
Hopper.
what I really want to know about.
Okay, so here's what's important. Right
Yeah.
now, you can buy an HGX A100 cluster
Hmm.
of, and I know that I'm making something. I'm doing it on purpose. I'll say it in layman's terms. They sell GPUs that are really really good at AI calculations.
Okay.
Most of the AI processing that happens on what we would consider a
Graphics
graphic cards, a
card.
graphical
Hmm.
process unit.
Hmm.
And there's really, because the graphics card architecture, a CPU architecture is, we're doing one thing but really fast.
Hmm.
And a graphics card architecture is traditionally, I mean, this is such a simplification. This is like when you gave that talk in front of all the neuroscientists at the Mayo Clinic, that you didn't know that they had all been invited. There was this talk at the Mayo Clinic, and it was about
It was
UX, and
supposed to be for UX
for
people.
UXers, and so they're like, "Oh, we just invited
We
everyone at the
invited
Mayo,"
everyone. I'm like, what do you mean
and so
everyone? Do you mean like neuroscientists? And they went, well, yeah, sure. And then there I was with the slide that says there are three brains: the new
little
brain,
brain, big
the
old
old
brain,
brain, and the social brain. And
midbrain,
it's like, oh
yeah,
my,
whatever.
and the slide comes up and I go, oh God, there are
There's like
neuroscientists in the
actual
room.
neuroscience. Like, this is not. Anyways, so
Yeah.
yes, the CPU is what one thing at a time, but very quickly.
Yeah.
Generally, the GPU is slower, but many
Many
things,
things.
parallel
Okay.
processing.
Got
And
it.
when you're talking about doing AI calculations, the type of calculations that are needed to
You
run
have to
AI
do the
models,
parallel.
what you need billions and billions and trillions of very tinsy tiny little calculations,
Yes.
but like a lot of
Going
them.
on at
So
the
a
same
GPU
time.
architecture that's refined for that makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
NVIDIA has invested heavily in that, in their tensor cores and other kind of stuff like that. So they already had a chip called the A100 that was exactly that. It was, you put in a server, or you could get a standalone or whatever, but basically it's a server with a bunch of GPU cores in it, or modified
Okay.
GPU cores that's
Okay.
specifically dedicated to running these sort of AI tasks.
Okay.
And most, and probably almost certainly, I don't know this for a fact, but there's like a 85% chance that OpenAI, that ChatGPT, was modeled and created on these A100 NVIDIA chips.
Okay.
So this is one of the foundational bedrocks of the industry when
Okay.
it comes to tensor core processing, when it comes to AI software. So they just announced the H100, which will replace the A100. The H100 is up to 10 times faster than the previous A100 for the types of calculations that are used in GPT-3 processing. 10 times faster. They're already in production, and they are likely already deployed, in starting to be deployed in businesses right now.
Okay.
And for example, the Amazon Web Services announced the EC2 Ultra Cluster P5, which can scale 20,000 interconnected H100 GPUs in one machine.
Okay.
That's the scale that's
All
required to
right,
run these
fine.
coins.
Let's just say big. We'll just
Big,
big.
big.
That's
And
what we'll say.
so all of the stuff that you would have to pay for Chat GPT,
Mm-hmm.
it just got an order of magnitude 10 times cheaper, or slash faster.
Right.
So anything that you could do before on a normal,
Chat GPT
Chat
thing.
GPT, you can now do with 1/10 of the power.
Okay. And I
So
have some ideas about what that
so that
means
just
in the
means that
in
in the
reality.
next year there will be
Yeah,
10,
yeah,
it'll
I
get
know.
10x better. So I just this
I
is
know.
always a big deal,
Okay, fine.
and it's just, so we're going to expect to be blown away in
Yes.
the next year.
Okay. All right. So those were the three things you want to talk about. And
And
now
that's a
we're all done.
podcast. Thanks
That's
everyone.
what we were going to talk about, but it took us the entire
Oh
time
my god.
to map that out. All right. So,
Well, I kind of did the third one.
all right. Oh, good. Well, the one comment I'll make on the third one, okay, is I think this means moving forward a leap in visual stuff because
Mm.
a lot of the AI chat GPT stuff is very text based, right? And you type in things and it types things back to you. And I'm sure that will continue. But, they're starting, they've been starting to show about being able to input and output visually. So there's been a
And
little bit of
lots
that.
of work has already been done on this.
Yeah. So, but I'm assuming that
Yeah.
the increase in power will one way we'll see it is visual, which I'm always interested
Yeah.
in because I've been saying things like, um, the AI is going to be doing the interaction design and screen design and app design, and it's already has been doing that, but kind of in a text way, and now it should be able to start doing it in a regular screen visual display. So I just that's always going on in the back of my mind. All
There's
right.
one of the other things they announced is even on your desktop chips,
Yeah.
there's a new thing with NVIDIA. You can go into the settings and turn it on, and it will automatically, if it senses that you're playing a video,
Yeah.
it will automatically upscale it
Yeah.
from 720p or 1080p to
Okay.
4K.
Okay.
So that includes anything that's in a Chrome browser. So
Yeah.
Netflix in a Chrome browser, YouTube, what any kind
Yeah.
of video, it'll just automatically take it, analyze it, figure out, oh, this is blurry. It should be sharp here. Use AI to kind of predict what it's
Yeah.
supposed to look like and automatically upscale that content to 4K. And you can run that now in your desktop GPU.
Okay.
So it's not like uh, because of video games
Mhm.
and because of media consumption, there's already been a lot of work
Right.
that has been
On
done
that.
in
Mhm.
AI making video of various sorts.
Yep.
And one last example I will give is when you were playing the new version of DLSS 3, which is NVIDIA's. It is sort of they're using AI to look at, when you play a video game, you're playing at, let's just say, 100 frames per second, and so that's a lot. That's a lot of frames. It's happening very quickly, 100 frames per second. And what the graphics card will do is it'll take a look at the different frames. And if you think of like a soldier running across the screen very slowly, right? The difference between one frame to the next, if you're doing 100 frames per second, is very small. But it's a little blurry and it's a little whatever. And so the AI processing on your graphics card looks at those frames coming off of from the video game engine and says, "Oh, we can insert a frame in between these two frames. We're going to add an extra frame. It doesn't really exist, but using AI, we're going to guess that, if the game character is running from one side to the other, we will guess that in between he will be in between those
Mm.
two sides, and you can artificially boost your frame rate to, we'll just say 160 frames per second by the AI automatically basically creating these
Mhm.
pictures
The in between
and
ones.
inserting them into your
Yeah.
screen in between the frames that are actually calculated. So there has been a lot of work already uh, that is happening and is already
But
deployed
here's okay,
for creating video.
but here's a question I have for you that I don't expect you know the answer to. And maybe it's slightly off topic, maybe. But if we go back to what I'm interested in, forget what about all this video game stuff. But if we
That's
go
fine.
back to the question of how will the AI create screens? How will the AI do interaction design work? One of the things I've not, I mean, I haven't spent very much time thinking about it, but how will you input? So, for example, with 2 months ago or a month ago, you know, I experimented with that version of Chat GPT, and I typed in, create an app for people to sign up for to register for training on blah, right? And I just put in a bunch of words, and it created a little screen for me, right? But it said, "Oh, here's the app," and it created the screen, and it created the buttons, and it was pretty crude, but it did it. But I'm just curious about moving forward, what will be the way the humans interact and tell the AI what screens to create? And you don't have to answer this
No, I
question.
do, because this is a perfect transition
Oh,
into the
into the
second topic.
okay, go ahead
We're
then.
actually going in reverse. I said one, two, three,
And we're going 3, 2, 1.
and we're going three,
That's
two,
okay.
one.
All right,
So
so go
two
ahead, talk to me.
is all about um, uh, Microsoft 365 Copilot,
Yeah,
because Microsoft would argue, and you will have to determine if this is correct, that the way that you are going to input this stuff and make things with AI
yeah,
is through natural human language
yeah.
direction. So I'm not saying that that should be the way, but at least for the immediate future, Microsoft is saying the way that you're going
Well,
to prompt the
yeah,
AI to do stuff
is the
is
way
with,
is what you do with ChatGPT. You just type or you talk.
right. So create a
Yeah,
screen. Now we
yeah.
should now. This actually is really good. So for those of you who may not know, Copilot is the is the new Microsoft sort of
Yeah,
chat.
unfortunately, I'm gonna say everybody should go watch that Copilot video, and I'm sorry to say that. I'm sorry to say that to you because it's 36 minutes long, and there are definitely places where you might be rolling your eyes, which I did. Um, we can talk about those things that were I found annoying. However, it does give, I think, a good picture, examples of what they have in mind.
So
And
yeah, so Copilot, they're putting it everywhere in Microsoft.
yeah,
It will be
every
in
in
Word,
Word and PowerPoint and
PowerPoint,
Excel
Excel,
and
Outlook.
whatever.
It's going to be an Edge. Like they're just putting it everywhere. Um, it is different than ChatGPT because ChatGPT is limited because it, at least for the free, the ones they allow everyone to do, they kind of cut the learning off, a year ago, and it's just on the internet. What, where Copilot is a little more magical, in fairness to Copilot, is that it can use other data sets in its
Right.
creation
Like
process.
your own corporate data.
Well, yeah, yeah. For example, yeah. So, or anything. So, for example, it much like in ChatGPT, you can say, "Hey, write a poem in the style of Shakespeare
Or
about
write a
ravens or something
blog post
in the
about
style that
in the
is
style of
funny."
the New York Times and right.
So what you can do is you can tell Copilot to do this thing. Okay, create a bunch of screens and slides for someone to log in. Well, okay, you can't tell Copilot to
No,
do that.
let's tell it to you can say create a PowerPoint deck
Presentation using the colors from this document and the business plan from our
from our
meeting.
Word
And you can
document
tag
and
that Word document. So
yeah,
what the AI does is it is grabbing things from the document you
or
linked to,
documents.
our documents you linked to, and then assembling that in a way that
Yeah.
makes sense. So one could imagine a future, because that's interesting because that's using natural language, but it's also using pictures, text, other raw materials to build a something.
But you
It's not.
use natural but you talk you use natural language. You type in or talk in just words to tell it what to go get and what to do.
Yeah, but then it's creating things that in PowerPoint's case is visual. So one could
Yeah.
imagine just applying that forward. You can tell it, hey, make some screens, use our current website, and here's the website URL or the Figma files or whatever as the template, for that. Use here, this is our design system with all of our colors and our fonts and our best practices. Use that as the guide. You have to
I
stay within
guess you
that.
could I mean, the part I'm interested in is more the task architecture or the information architecture. So, I
Can I ask a
can
question?
yeah.
What format are
Well,
architectures and
that's what I'm
information
asking is like
stored?
what, right now we do diagrams, that say kind of flowchart diagrams that say, well, here's the first thing the user wants to do, and here's where it needs to go and get that, and that information is stored over here, and then most of the time the next thing they want to do is this, but sometimes this occurs, and that's usually in a task flow diagram, can be in an outline in words, and I guess that's I'm kind of curious about what are the what kind of inputs can it handle, and what kind of inputs do we
Yeah.
want to use?
Well, I think I mean, so it is. I think something complicated like in some ways AI is sort of perfect for this role. A task information architecture and task architecture. These are complicated things
Yeah, they can be really
that are hard
complicated.
for almost anyone who's not uh, a UX researcher or information architect. I mean, those people have really awesome analytical chops,
Yeah.
and one of the hardest skills is taking stuff and interviews and consolidating it into complex flows and maps
Process
and systems.
flows and
But
maps and
once you have that process flow and map, it is that is something that I think AI would be able to deal with rather easily because it very much resembles to me software coding. So a lot of coding is sort of that do this, and if this other thing, then it ties on in over here, and it's very sort of it goes in a progression the way most sort of user
yeah.
flows go, task flows go, but it is sort of splintery and spidery, and you have to do this thing, and then you do this loop over here, and then you kind of return a variable back to the beginning, and so a lot of the AI stuff has been designed with code in mind, and I
Yeah.
think following that, having the AI, in quotes, understand for whatever that means, these sort of complex processes, and
Okay.
then putting stuff together, I
Okay.
think
But
is
can I
within its
tell you
capabilities.
my fear?
I mean, I have many fears. Again,
One of
it
my
should all
fears.
be illegal, but
Well,
sure,
okay,
yes.
I know, and we need to come back to that. We do. Okay, here's some of the things I'm concerned about. First of all, I'm concerned. I've said to you, how many times in the last month have I said to you, UX is dead? I keep saying this, and my
Yeah.
fear is that if the AI can create screens, and if you can create a screen just by saying, "Hey, create a screen for blah blah blah," blah," people are going to be, this is already happening. There's so much interaction design that is very tactical and that is very feature oriented and that does not take the whole entire workflow into account from a human centered point of view. And I think this is just going to make that all so much easier. So now you'll just continue to have, oh, this little set of three screens that does this one action, that builds this one feature, and doesn't make any sense to what the person might have wanted to do before or after. And I think, it'll just make it worse. So that's
S-
one of my
s-
deep concerns.
So let's address this concern.
And it will look pretty in that it'll go and it'll get the button from the design system, and it'll make the button, if somebody created a design system and the buttons are a good size and color and contrast and all of that, that's nice, and it'll have the nice button on there. But the task flow will be garbage because every person's going to be doing just their little bit, and then it'll somehow knit it all together and everyone will go, ooh, that's great, and it won't be great. So that's that. So I want to say that, but I want to say something else, and then I'll be quiet and let you talk. One of the things that occurred to me when I was watching the Copilot video was, oh, we're just going to use AI to instead of fixing. One of the things that struck me in the Copilot video, this woman from Microsoft stands there and she says, and I remember because her arms go out, she said, people only use 10% of the things that PowerPoint can do, and they don't use 90% of the
They were really
capability.
pushing PowerPoint animations in
And
that.
I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, well, that's because they might be poorly designed. No one knows they're there. Even if you want to do it, you can't figure out how to do it. And so it's like, oh, we have all these we have all this bad design with our software, and we don't have to fix any of it anymore because the AI is going to do it all. And so, therefore, don't worry that all of our products are unusable because you don't have to do it anymore. I'm like, well, that was convenient. We can just get rid of having a good interaction design for anything because the AI will just do it. And maybe that's a great idea, except that I think it's still going to compound itself. And if the AI is creating, I just think the whole human centered piece is going to
Well,
fall
okay.
off the rails.
Okay. So to respond to all of this,
Yeah.
for example,
Yeah.
there there were what I would like to to explain is the question of a dunk.
A dunk?
Yes, a basketball dunk. I
Okay.
I I,
I
I
di I did not see this coming, okay?
this was the yeah, I thought of this while watching the keynote.
Go ahead. This is what you thought of when watching the Copilot.
So a dunk is very cool. It's when, on a 10-foot standard basketball rim, a human being jumps up with the ball in a hand and can push the ball through the rim, jumping so high that they can reach and their hands are large enough to be able to
Can
just
I say
dunk the ball
that
in.
in my life, I will never do a dunk.
Yeah.
That is not
Now,
physically possible.
now I have dunked on, of course, short rims. I
Yes.
can't quite get up
Make it all the way to the
to
10
on a
foot.
10
Yeah.
foot.
Yeah.
I can maybe get to. I am not, for those of you listening, I'm not that tall. I'm about 5'8".
Right.
So I can maybe get to the rim back when I was a little more spry, but I'm not going to be able to get high enough to dunk. So if everyone on Earth can dunk,
Okay. Which they can't.
no, 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 but let's just assume everyone on
Okay.
Earth can dunk.
Okay.
Every basically every human being, for the most part, can jump up the required amount and
Okay.
slam a basketball through a hoop. Then can anyone dunk? Then what is the purpose of a dunk? It is a concept that doesn't exist. Dunks exist because very few people can actually do them.
Can do them.
That's what
Okay.
makes them
So
cool.
it becomes a
That's what makes
thing.
it exist.
Right.
Um, so when I was watching this keynote, and they were talking about we'll take, and the word they used over and over and over, that clearly the marketing people had said, is we take the drudgery out
Oh,
of
yeah.
we're
Out
taking
of
the
your work.
drudgery out so
Drudgery
you
out
can
of your work.
focus on blah blah blah. And they gave all these examples, and on paper they're like, wow, okay, so before I was a salesperson and I was putting together these presentations, and let's just assume I was putting 5 presentations a week, but because of Microsoft Copilot, I'll now be able to make 10 a week and they'll look awesome. And I can send them to my clients. And because of that, I will get more business because I'll have, right now I'm getting X amount of business and I will just double the amount of presentations I can give. And I will therefore have some, increase in the amount of, money that I can close as a salesperson. But it doesn't work that way because if everyone can dunk, then no one can dunk. So if everyone can use AI to make a really snazzy presentation, to make it a great marketing pitch with the details of the meeting and blah, 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 then none of the presentations are any good. Good is only relative to the other things that you're competing against. So what is a good presentation on today's standards is gone, and it's a totally different standard, and a different standard just requires different words, right? So if everyone can dunk, dunk doesn't matter. It's like a whatever the new word is, like a what's really cool, is a
Is a plunk.
fludink. Yeah, yeah, right, where you jump on the backboard and then you do a
And go
somersault,
over
and
in the back.
yeah,
Right.
right. so
Right. Right.
so
And use somersault into the net and come out the
yeah,
bottom.
yeah, right. So some hard thing, and humans will always figure out what the hard thing is and make that cool because it's
Yeah.
hard. So if there are things humans do that are completely incredible, like speech. Speech is amazing. It's maybe one of the coolest things that exists. The fact that we just use these sounds and we can all instantly understand it, and we communicate and we tell stories, and it's fantastic. And no one cares because everyone can do it. It's not like, wow, they did you talk today? Did you see him order a
Right. Right.
coffee? That
Right.
was incredible, right? Because it doesn't matter. There's not even a word, it's not even a word because it's not special because everyone can do it. So, um, there, what you are saying with UX is true in so many industries, so many things. Well, I worry that now that they can just automate the creation of screens, they're going to get rid of all the blah 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 and just automate the creation of screens. Maybe, right? But that's true of code. That's true
Yeah.
of copying. That's
Yeah.
true of marketing. That's true of sales. That's true of HR. That's true of
Yep.
legal. That's true of like everything, right?
Everything. Mhm.
And so if everyone can do this stuff, if suddenly everyone can make a passable website that looks pretty, well, then none of them actually look pretty, and none of them are interesting, and none of them stand out, and it sort of doesn't matter. So, that's I don't necessarily, even though everyone ups their game, I don't think it matters. It's not like there's a final end game when it comes to design or user experience where, and this is true of any field, where suddenly it's like, well, we did it. The user flow is
We have
perfect
arrived.
forever, and we all now, like, we as a society have advanced beyond usability. We've achieved usability nirvana, and we all now
Yeah.
just like float
Yeah.
around in padded chairs or whatever. Like the entire, you've compared the usability of a modern website, and or that maybe that's usability, but the sort of the ability for someone to interact with a video game to like a chewy interface. Now, in many ways, like the chewy is simpler.
Chewy meaning, by the way, for those of you who may not know, it's a character
Character
user
interface
interface
before they
before
invented
there were
the
graphical
Jew,
user
right?
interfaces.
So the difference in being able to or using an iPhone versus punch cards,
Right.
like the usability is so much better, but it's not like, oh well, we're done now.
Yeah.
So there's always going to be ways where you can differentiate yourself in the market. And the whole point of usability is, yeah, you care about your customers, dot, dot, dot. And you want to be better than your competition.
Right.
You want your design to be better. You want your interactions to be better. You want, things to be more engaging, things to work better. So I mean, on one hand, I'm of course pessimistic, and yeah, we could destroy the entire economy and the ripple effects, and it should all be illegal. I think I've been pretty clear about this. Um, on the other hand, I do see, it, just because if everyone raises their game, okay, then how do you raise your game,
Right.
right? What's the next,
What's the
what's the
next level?
what's the
Yeah.
next level that then you
Yeah.
have to figure out to make it better than the competition, because you always have to be better than the competition somehow. You need a way to differentiate yourself in the space, and that's true for marketing and sales and UX.
All right.
So
So
yeah,
let's talk some more. Let can we just take a minute and talk about? Well, maybe we shouldn't if people haven't watched it yet. But I kind of want to talk about all the things that were annoying and bothersome in that presentation. So you mentioned the one about they kept saying drudgery, take the drudgery, and
mm.
bring joy.
Again,
This is going to bring joy to your
these type of
work.
keynotes are for the shareholders to think that they have a future whatever and they're going to make a lot of
Right.
money. So it's always designed for shareholders. So
Yeah.
you just got to keep that in
So
mind when you're
I
watching
was
this.
rolling
That's
my
the
eyes
target
about the
audience.
drudgery and the joy and the agency. That's another word,
Oh,
by the
yeah.
way,
Oh,
that's
you're the
used
ever
a
you have
lot.
agency at every
You have
step.
agency.
Even though all you'll be getting is spam emails with very beautifully crafted
Beautifully
PowerPoint
crafted
decks,
spam,
yeah,
but
that you didn't ask
you will
for,
have
and you don't know if they're
agency.
made by a human or not. And you don't even know if
So
they so what really bugs me,
yeah.
we are going to get to a point where it just this is once it makes me want to slam my head against the wall. You have there's AI software that creates marketing presentation decks and automated emails and like and back and forth conversations, and they will send that to other companies where automated AI systems will review proposals and determine which are the best proposals. So now all the work in quotes that people were doing where they're talking to different companies is just two AIs just talking with each other. there's not even a
No,
person
yeah,
at
involved.
the loop. It's just like so the like these AIs are like, well, I think it should be 20 cents per unit. It's like, well, how about 25? Well, thanks, but I'm going to talk to my manager. Okay, well, you get back to me. And it'll all just be AIs talking to each other in silence in some server. I just like what is the point of any of this? They're just AIs are just mimicking. They're just gonna duplicate because they're all designed with the thought that there would be a human on the other end. That's the whole point of a nice looking marketing presentation is that you then give it to some human stakeholder so that they buy your product. And of course, so then the but all the receiving is also going to be automated. So these things that are designed for a human presentation and these things that are designed to receive human presentations will then just be completely automated, going back and forth, just pretending to have human conversations with each other. It's I just want to bang my head against the wall. It's so
Okay.
ridiculous.
So, next annoying thing. Um, well, I was confused. I was confused by several things in this presentation.
Oh,
At the
and
very beginning,
I have an annoying thing after yours, so go ahead.
oh yeah, but I may never stop. You may never get a chance to say. All
Well,
right.
no, I wanna get one
Okay.
in there.
So it annoyed me that they started. One of the first examples they mentioned was about in order to make
Oh,
work more
no
wonderful.
kidding.
First of all, they mentioned a nurse and then said nothing about it's like there was nothing in this that a nurse would do. And in fact, one of the first things I thought of was before they even said the word nurse, I was like, well, you take the drudgery out of work. Yeah, yeah, well, there's a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah,
work that
take
people
the
do
drudgery out of work unless you're a plumber
unless you're a plumber or a
or
nurse or
nurse
all
or
the anybody who has to deal with
laborer.
things that aren't digital. So that was like, what?
Well, the bourgeoisie in their Silicon Valley
I
palaces.
don't know. That was
Let
just
them
why did
eat
they
work.
even mention nurse then? All right, so that was one thing that bothered me. Then another thing that bothered me was they said that
Yeah, that was very annoying.
they kept, you know, they mentioned briefly at the beginning about, responsible AI. That's the new term, by the way. Responsible AI. And then
Can
at
I
the end, that one woman who's like, well, of course everyone will pay attention and make sure that they're using this responsibly. And I was like,
Okay.
seriously,
All right.
that's
If
your nod to
this is my
ethics? And I
time.
thought to myself, Guthrie will just
This is my
explode.
time to shine. This is my
Go
time to
ahead,
shine.
talk, Guthrie.
Because what I've done
Yeah,
is I went
yeah,
to the Microsoft website where they
yeah.
list their AI transparency documents.
Okay.
I've read through all the details.
Oh, you have?
I have. I've read
And
it. It
and what
is
did you
complete
discover?
vaporware. There
Yes,
is
I
nothing
figured.
nothing
Nothing.
there whatsoever. It
Yeah,
is just whatever they want to do.
yeah,
The worst example is when it comes to AI and privacy,
yeah,
it says it is one sentence and it says like covered under the standard Microsoft user
yeah,
agreement. That's it.
yeah, yeah,
There is nothing in there. It's just some like talk to stakeholders. There are no guidelines. There are
yeah,
no rules. I think it's great that they publish this thing. It means absolutely nothing. No, and even if it does say anything, there is no mechanism by how it's followed. There's
yeah.
nothing in there that says, you know, if we determine that it's going to be unethical, we'll pull it from the market.
No,
Like
they're not going
we
to.
promise to not make money off of it. No, it's
Yeah,
there's nothing in there.
nothing in there.
It is just complete lip service, and this is not Microsoft's fault. I'm sure all the big tech companies are doing this.
Yeah,
It it's a complete empty vapid joke if they say anything about transparency.
yeah.
So this will lead me into what annoys me
Go ahead.
about this. AI relies on data. You need good data to have good results. It's garbage, you know, garbage in, garbage out. And it just so happens that all this AI stuff, uh, conveniently enough, it's only amplified if you're within the walled garden of whatever company's AI you're using. Isn't that convenient?
Wait a minute. Say more. What do you mean?
So, in order to use Copilot
Yeah,
and have it create a PowerPoint based
Yeah.
on your call. It just so happens that you have to use PowerPoint and
Right.
Excel and have the
Right.
call in Teams where you
Right.
can have the transfer and have use Azure Cloud and
Right.
have the
Right.
admin
You have
stuff
to
there
it's
so
gotta
so it can
all
use
be in the
the Microsoft
Microsoft.
all the data that's in there
Right.
with and all their users and the Exchange accounts. So it just so happens that AI works if you are already in the walled garden of the
Yeah.
company with whom are paying
That's
money.
right.
If
That's
you're
right.
using Miro board for
Forget
your
it.
work, if you're
You're
using Slack for your chats,
you're
none
you're
of it
you're out of
works.
luck.
You can't
Right.
use any of it. It's like it's just, it's functionally then just chat GPT stapled to, Word, which
Yep.
is kind of what it always was. So the magic sauce that really is very cool only works if you stay in the nice walled
Of
garden and pay
course.
them all their money. And so it's another example of these large monolithic companies realizing that the way we make money is by monopolizing the processes that are happening. It's why
Yeah.
Adobe tried to buy Figma, for
Yeah.
example. And as long as we can stay in our monopolistic walled gardens,
Right. Then we'll
then the money flows because you
that's right.
can never leave. Because if you leave, suddenly
You don't
all your
have all the
processes,
data
all your flows, all your AI stuff, all the ways that you do
is
everything
gone.
is gone. And now you're trapped forever. Now, being trapped forever in Microsoft is, I mean, it's not the worst thing. They've been around a long time. They sort of dominate the space in some capacity, but it just so happens that all these companies, Facebook with Meta and their sort of AI stuff,
Yeah.
like it just so happens that it only works in the walled garden of the company who
Yeah. I
creates it.
know.
Now,
Well,
you can still do the natural language processing stuff like ChatGPT, and that's why
yeah.
ChatGPT is so cool because it doesn't rely on a walled garden. But to do any of the more advanced, do any of the work stuff
Right. It's gonna be
requires
within
that.
the yep.
Which in some ways makes sense because if you're some company developing a new I don't know, bicycle engine or something, electric bike battery, like you don't want your plans just out in the open, right? Your all your data is under wall and key anyways. So anyway, it just so happens that there's no interoperability. You have to stay within the walled garden, and the instant you stop paying, all of your insights and data and whatever
Right.
is just
Are gone.
gone.
You know,
So that bugged me.
one of the things that I thought was weird in the video was the part about business chat and about all the things you could do. It's like
Business
you're in a meeting on
business chat. Who came up with that one?
you're in the meeting,
Business chat.
you're in the Teams meeting. You're in a Teams video call. And instead of
Oh my
participating in the
god.
Teams video call, while you're there,
What?
you're
Yeah,
going
not
to
after. While you're
no, while
on
you're on the
on the
call and you're
call.
supposed to be interacting with people, instead, you're going to be asking for a summary and uh,
What did
uh,
what did what did they say earlier in the meeting? So I because I definitely wasn't paying
because I
attention.
wasn't paying
Paying
attention because
attention.
I was playing with my AI stuff, and so I missed what they decided, and now, so while I'm in the meeting, I can be requesting what happened in the meeting I'm in. And I was like, "What?
They're
What is
replacing the drudgery of work, and by drudgery they mean interacting with your colleagues in any capacity.
And thinking about things
Yeah, thinking about things
and
and having
interacting with
and
people.
interacting with people.
Instead,
That we can't have that.
it's drudgery, Guthrie.
In fairness, I know a lot of people who like work from home and they can't stand being on all these really dumb
Well,
work calls.
they
And that's
can
because a
be
lot of corporate cultures are terrible.
right, and they can be
So
on the call and not be on the call, and periodically they can just type in summarize.
summarize,
But
yeah. And then when it's their turn to present,
if everybody's on the call, not being on the call, there won't be anything to summarize.
so
Anyway,
there's a difference between a a conversation and a presentation.
yeah,
Like having having a group of people on a call all talking, even if they're all
yeah,
on the call at the same time.
Yeah.
collaboratively working together
Right. Discussing something.
and
Yeah.
just sitting there, and one person
One
presents, and maybe
person's
they're
doing
having a back and
right.
forth with one person.
And
Okay,
everyone
and then
else
it's the
is just
next
sitting
person
there.
sort of presenting and saying, well, here's what I was working on, and then there's like one or two people talking, whereas and most people are just like not doing it. So now they figured out a magical way to get rid of even more collaboration on work calls. So the idea of having 5 people all work collaboratively on anything no longer needs to happen, because you just wait
Right.
your turn, and then you can just jump in and say the 2 things that are required for you to
All right. So
appear like you're.
Guthrie,
Yeah,
we talked about 3, we talked about
ridiculous.
2, but now let's talk about 1. What is this thing about it you wanna? Because
Man,
I don't
we
wanna
didn't
run out
even.
of time here, this loop thing, and then we still haven't gotten this is all current. We didn't even go and talk about past Microsoft
I'm
stuff, but
sorry, Microsoft.
talk to me about Loop.
Okay, actually, this we can talk about past Microsoft now. So, we've just spent a bunch of time bashing on Microsoft for a lot of ways. They're no better or no worse than any other company. In fact, they're
Yes.
probably better if I'm being
Yes.
entirely honest. So, um, you know, like at least they have a transparent policy, and at least or something. Or I don't know, whatever. At least you can't ask like Microsoft AI to build you a bomb, which I'm sure you'll be able to do soon. So that'll be fun. Um, one last thing that I do want to say about before we jump to Loop is the privacy implications of people who are working. It's really, really, really bad.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So, um, what everyone has to remember, Microsoft has a whole admin section. There is a back end to all of this. So we were
Yeah.
talking about the user facing stuff, but there will also be a back end. So you will be able to, if you're an admin, um, show me every single employee
Yep.
who, in any email or video call at
Yeah.
any time, because all the
Yep.
video calls are recorded and transcripts are made,
Yep.
said anything bad about me
That's
or
right.
the boss or the CEO,
Yep.
or talked about doing drugs, or said anything that was, um, the pro LGBT, or
Yep.
whatever it is.
It'll
Instantly,
all
the
be in
AI will
there.
be able to analyze every
Yep.
single email,
I
phone
know.
call, chat, document that you
I
have
know. I
on
thought about it.
any device that you're logged into
That's right.
your work computer, because they spy on all that stuff, and
Yes.
instantly provide that data.
All of
It
that. Yep.
is Big Brother to the quadrillionth degree.
Right. Right. I
So that's
agree.
bad.
That's bad.
Let's just move on from that. Yeah, I'm glad. Yeah, so if you're an employee, you should be seriously worried about the spy implications, not of Microsoft, though they may use your data anonymously, but whatever, but of your own
Of your
corporation,
employer.
and
Yeah.
how someone in that department could use it
Yes.
in
Because
some
that's
sort
been
of
going on
nefarious
for
way.
a while, but now it's going to be so easy and
Supercharged.
so
Oh,
powerful.
supercharged.
Yeah.
Because
I agree with that.
at least I would say, I think a lot of people and companies know I'm not going to write this in an email. Like if I'm going to
Right.
say something controversial, like I'm not going to put this in email form where it could
Right.
be used against me later. Well, great. Now all your phone conversations
Right.
in Teams are being
Are
monitored, recorded.
absolutely part of it. Yep.
So fantastic. All right. So moving on to Microsoft Loop. So Microsoft has a long history, I think, of really pushing user interfaces forward. But they take their time, and they take their time because of a history, and because they're very corporate, and they have a lot of, they don't go quickly. Word has not changed very much in the last 20 years. Um, but when they do something, they usually just steal it from someone else. So like Microsoft Teams is they just got scared of Slack and bought Skype and shoehorned this thing together called Teams, but they cobbled it into a very powerful tool that we use all the time. And there are other companies that sort of envisioned the future of it. They copied Xerox too. So basically, what they do is they find good ideas and they
Right.
copy them and then make them mainstream. They
Yeah.
sort of just eat them.
Yep.
And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's monopolistic, but I don't know if it's necessarily bad if it
Hmm.
makes user interface, if it brings user interfaces forward. So there is apparently there's a product, I don't know a whole lot about it, called Notion, that already did this. There are other startups that have done stuff like this, but now Microsoft just stole it. It's ours now. They're calling it Microsoft Loop. And Loop is a combination, I would say, between have you ever used OneNote?
Yes.
So OneNote is their note-taking software. So it's sort of a combination of Note and Miro and Google Sheets in some way. And
Okay.
it's from a technical perspective, it's really, really cool because um, what it allows you to do, think of if you've ever used a PowerPoint and you want to show a graph from Excel, you
Yeah.
can link an Excel document into PowerPoint. You can
Yeah.
just there's like not no one does it because it's a card, but you can technically link to it, which means that if you make a change in the Excel document, it will then
It's
when you
one of
bring up
those 90% of
percent,
things
yeah.
that nobody does. Yeah.
Yeah, so, like, if you needed, updated the sales numbers in
Yeah.
your deck, it would automatically update. It
Yes.
is sort of like that. So what Loop does is it takes it to the trillionth degree. So anything that you do, any kind of snippet, and I forget exactly what they call it. Maybe they call it a loop, maybe they call it a snippet, maybe they call it something. Anything you do is its own snippet, and any snippet can be shared anywhere very
Okay.
easily. So,
Okay.
for example, one thing you could do is in Loop you have a new thing. We'll just say it's Pi 2 planning, okay, and it's sort of a blank document.
Okay.
And in that blank document, you have multiple people working on it together, like a
Yeah.
Miro board.
Yeah.
So it's collaborative in that sense. And what someone can do is, hey, so here's what everyone's working on in this current sprint that we're doing. And
Yeah.
so what you do is you link to that document that you some Excel document where you have the list of all the projects.
Yeah.
And then people can work on that collaboratively together. And it's like, okay, let's make a to-do list. And you make the to-do list right there. It's like, okay, let's have like the project management sync. And you all just sort of do that and it points to somewhere else. It's like, okay, let's turn this into a PowerPoint, right? And then in that little section is the PowerPoint document. So all the different documents, you can go there separately, but in Loop, they're all connected and you can edit them all and they
So
all sort of work.
Is Loop like an application like
Yes.
PowerPoint, Excel?
Yes, it's an application.
Okay.
It's you could sort of like a
Does it
it
exist
yeah.
now?
It's existed in a trial format for a while. Allegedly, anyone can now preview it as of this last presentation.
Okay.
So it allows, so it's basically like a whiteboard. It's like you can pull in emails, you can pull in Word, you can pull in web documents, you can make to-do lists, you can do project stuff. So it's this really hyper malleable
Is it
place
how
for
easy is it to
collaboration.
use?
I have not personally used it. I have because they just announced the demo
Okay.
of it. It looks really cool,
All
and
right.
it looks
Are we
very
gonna try it?
collaborative. Yeah, yeah. I'm really. I think. I mean, I know they talked about and they built Copilot into it and all that kind of stuff. But I actually think if you're talking about working collaboratively, I
This
think
might
this is a
be
really, really big deal. It will change. If we're talking about replacing email
yeah.
as the default mode that you communicate in the
Yeah.
workplace, and Slack did that to some extent.
Yeah.
This is the next step
Hmm.
where instead of having a email conversation back and forth,
Or
you have
chat or
a chat, right? You have a I don't you we call a loop page. I don't know what it is that have the people on it, right? So if we're trying to figure
Mhm.
out how to put a training together,
Mhm.
between us and a client and someone
Mhm.
else, we would have a page together. We would all go to the page. We'd have our notes. We'd have, okay, here's the contract that needs to be signed.
Mhm.
It's like, hey, did you get this approved by legal? Okay, here's the updated contract. It's
So it would
all
just
here,
all
this
be
one place.
there.
And it's all collaborative. So instead of the big email chains back and forth, you all go to
Yeah.
this collaborative loop page. So it has the potential to turn these processes that are not graphical into now
Intergraphical.
into graphical.
All
And
right.
I think it's a big deal.
I will definitely check this out. We'll
So
see. I'm skeptical.
you're skeptical? Why are you skeptical?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm just skeptical that it's well implemented, that it's usable, that I can figure it out. Maybe that's what I'm skeptical about.
I have one last question for you about Microsoft.
Go ahead.
I think that they've been really good with their UX. Um, and I want you to compare and contrast Microsoft products
This is this is my
with
my
with other
My
professional
my midterm exam, compare and
products
contrast Microsoft UX with what?
and the usability of it and how good it is with other professional products, because it's not quite fair to compare and contrast it to, a simple website, because these are sort of complex,
Yeah,
somewhat
yeah, yeah.
professional applications.
Well,
Like Excel. Like, no one knows what Excel can do except for the Excel wizards, but like for the people who use Excel, I mean, it can do a ton.
yeah, I mean, if I had to give Microsoft in general a grade on their user experience, I might give them a B minus. I mean,
Mm. Which for you, I mean, that's high praise.
realizing that nobody gets an A, so forget that. Yeah, B
Windows isn't
minus.
terrible.
So I think,
It's not terrible.
I mean, they have a lot of people in UX, so they've got UX teams all over, and they do a lot of research, and they do a lot of UX design, and so I know that they spend considerable effort, and they do care about the user experience. I believe.
And I
I
know
think like
people who have worked on that team, and they are talented, smart
yeah, yeah,
individuals.
yeah. I think like any organization that's doing any tech, I think it's easy for them to for the whole UX to get overwhelmed by other things like features. We should probably have a podcast episode on the word features and how that is the enemy of UX. Um, really,
You
I
should
could
get
do.
t-shirts made.
Features are the enemy of UX.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
okay, I'll do that,
I'll
and
wear
you,
it. Let's
and
make
I
let's
can
make
talk
up some
about that
t-shirts. I'll
for
buy
an
one.
entire hour. But I think in general, I think that Microsoft is okay. I think, if they said we're going to now spend whatever money we need to spend to fix all the UX problems and really bring this up to be excellent UX, I think they could do that, and I think it would take a lot of time and money to do that. They have so many apps and there's so many small interactions, and I really think, I'm not kidding, when that woman in that video said people only use 10% of the capability of PowerPoint. It's like, right. They only use 10% of PowerPoint, Word, Excel, all of them, because it's too hard to do, you know, all the other stuff. You don't know what's there, and you don't know how to do it, and you don't have time. So yeah,
Can
they're okay. They're
can
okay.
I bring up one last point
Yeah.
before we close?
Yeah.
The other thing that I just was when sorry, I'm choking up here.
You're getting
This is
so
so emotional.
emotional.
There's a spot where, because we're talking about Microsoft for professional use,
Yeah.
but a lot of people do use Microsoft stuff for personal use.
Yeah.
And they had a big personal example where how you would
Right,
use
which was their
PowerPoint.
first big example after they said this
Said
had to
this
do
is
with
to do with
work.
the
Their
nurse.
first example was not work.
But what it was this woman said that she had the daughter who she loves
So much.
so much. She had a graduation coming up, and and she loves her so much. She used AI to completely automate the celebration of her daughter in like
I
the most
know.
soulless
It was so
way I can
terrible.
imagine.
It
Like,
was
she
really
has like
terrible. You guys have to go watch this
she has the
video.
AI craft the speech that she's going
I
to give at
know.
her daughter's
I
graduation,
know.
saying like, I'm so proud of you. So she hates her daughter so much she couldn't even spend the 5 minutes to speak from the heart about how much she loves her daughter.
She
She had
had
to
the
go to an
AI
AI
created. It
so
was
the AI
just
could tell her how to tell her, this is how you tell your daughter that you love her,
okay.
and then
And the
write that
worst
down.
part, and then we really do have to go, was in the speech that the AI put together. It had a little prompt that says, Look at
Like,
Tasha
yeah, look at
now.
Tasha,
I
like
was
a
like,
prompt to, like, how to give a
"Oh
good
my
speech,
god." You
and it's
needed
like
a prompt to about when to turn and look at your
so that you can
daughter
love your
that you
daughter.
love so much. Okay. Yeah. No, the video is really fun. Everybody should go watch it, and,
So
in conclusion,
in conclusion, okay, AI stuff is moving forward.
yeah,
Microsoft is doing some really interesting stuff. They're the
yeah,
pioneer here.
yeah,
They're the pioneer, and Um, I think people will if everyone can dunk, no one can dunk. And
okay,
if every speech right now, if you give a heartfelt speech or a really good speech, that means a lot to someone. Like if you stand up at someone's wedding or you stand up at someone's graduation and you give a heartfelt speech, that means a lot. But if everyone can give a good speech because they put it through a chat GPT, then none of the speeches are good. And you will have to find out some other way to show your appreciation, your love, your devotion. And maybe that's by handwriting it, a note, because a computer can't do it. That people will figure out ways to show that they care, that they're going above and beyond. And
alright.
having an AI tell you to look at her daughter at her graduation to tell you
It's
that
not
you're
it.
proud of her is not it.
Guthrie, thank you so much for this talk.
Yeah, I came out swinging today. I was hot.
Alright.
I was hot. Thanks for it, and maybe hopefully next week we'll have another one. All right.
Yep.
Have a great day.
Alright. Thank you. Bye,
Thanks, everyone.
everyone.
Oh, one last thing.
What?
If you if you want us to make a run of t-shirts, get in touch. You can email info@theteamw.com. And if we get enough submissions, we'll put that
We'll
up
do
at
the
our
T-shirts?
Shopify
Okay.
store.theteamw.com is where we'll put it if we get enough
Alright.
requests. But maybe no one cares.
Alright.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.